Hey guys, so we've been listening to an audiobook called Swipe. It's a novel written about a dystopian world. I asked you what dystopian meant last week, and a lot of you responded with great answers from the dictionary and things like that. So each chapter is broken up into 3 parts. So we listened to the prologue, and then we listened to chapter 1, part 1. Today we're going to listen to chapter 1, part 2, and chapter 1, part 3. If we left off, and the main character, we found out his name was Logan, was having some kind of disagreement with his dad, where he kind of let on that something happened to a girl. She was killed. We don't know who the girl is, but something happened to her, and I guess the dad is playing it off like he doesn't like to talk about it. And I mean, rightly so. It might bring up bad memories. Could be a mom, it could be a sister, an aunt, a girlfriend. I'm hoping we find out. I'm listening to this book for the first time with you, so I'm getting a good experience with you. So we're going to start, and please just listen. Like I said, if you've already read this book, or if you really liked it and you went out and got it after we listened to the first part, just use this time for independent reading. But an audiobook is a nice time to sit, relax, listen to a story. All right, so let me share my screen. Okay. So we are going to listen to chapter 1, part 2. Okay.
In all of it, Logan couldn't remember his dad opening the window. Couldn't remember the draft coming in and animating the blinds, soft rat-a-tat against the pane, as they did so ominously now. So who had done it? Who had touched the window, and when? There had to be a reasonable explanation, but Logan couldn't think of one. Why could he never think of one? For years it had been this way off and on. He'd walk home from school on the familiar sidewalks of his town, looking over his shoulder the whole way. He'd finish homework on his lap with his back to a wall, his desk beside him empty and gathering dust, so as always to keep an eye on the room he was in. He'd brush his teeth at night transfixed by the door behind him in the mirror, his eyes trained on the knob that at any time could betray him, could turn or jump or jiggle. A quiet moment was one spent listening for footsteps, for leaves rustling in the fall, or snow crunching in the winter. Time alone was time spent watching the movement in the shadows. Being underage, Logan couldn't see a doctor without a marked guardian. So at his moments of highest desperation, when his parents had had enough and didn't know what else to do, his dad would take him, drag him, to the center. Logan would sit in the examination room, prodded and scared, while Mr. Langley said to the doctor things like, "We don't know what's wrong with him," and "ever since his sister," just exactly as if Logan wasn't there, wasn't sitting right there and crying silently as the doctor shone lights at him and shook his head coolly and clicked his tongue, saying words like traumatized, paranoid, delusional. Over time, Logan learned to carry his fear. He learned to swallow it, deny it, live with it. His accounts of faces in windows and footprints on floors, of sounds at night and doors opening and closing on their own, of being followed or tracked, or who knows what else, had all been brushed off so many times by his parents and teachers and adults of any kind that sometimes Logan wondered what was real and what was imaginary. But his sister had died. That happened. And ever since, Logan was about one floorboard creak away from certainty that someone, somewhere, was out to get him too. 3. His parents didn't know it, But Logan kept a flashlight hidden under his pillow. The switch to the ceiling light was all the way across the room, and he would have had to get up out of bed to turn it on. That was unacceptable. So Logan sat now, back to the wall, covered in blankets up to his neck, and his hand braced the flashlight against his cheek to steady the beam of light as he swept it around each corner of the room. There was nothing immediately out of ordinary, except for the opened window. No mud on the floor, no stuff out of place. He turned the flashlight around, pointing the unlit end of it away from him, and flipped a switch along its handle. The main light turned off, and out of its other end, the violet haze of a black light began to glow. Black lights were useful. They revealed lint, smudges, blood, traces not seen by the unaided eye. And most importantly to Logan, they showed nanodust. There wasn't a marked person around who didn't leave a cloud of it behind. Tonight, though, like every night, Logan saw nothing. Just the single small trail left by his father, an empty room with an unpleasant draft, and a window slightly ajar. Time to check the rest of the house. Logan tiptoed to the corner of his room and called for the elevator, which arrived promptly and took him to ground level. Like many private residences in the town of Spokane, Logan's house had just one room to a floor, with an elevator connecting them and an open-air spiraling staircase outside in case of emergency or for using during nice summer months. Each room had panoramic windows and doors in two of the corners, one to the elevator and one to the outside staircase. The height of these houses varied widely and could reach higher than 20 floors, but Logan's had only 11. This was good. More would have taken longer, because every night, without fail, after his parents had tucked him into bed and gone to sleep themselves, it was Logan's job, self-appointed, to look thoroughly through each floor, bottom to top, flashlight in hand for signs of even the slightest suspicious thing. Paranoid? To Logan, it was practical. These were simply the habits any boy might develop if he were certain that someone was out to get him. The first floor was the foyer, lined with pictures of the family and hangers for coats and not much else. Nothing unusual this evening, so Logan double-checked the front door's deadbolt and moved on. Second floor was the kitchen. Knives were all in place. That was a good sign. The third floor was the dining room, only ever used for holidays and entertaining guests, and tonight it was as empty as expected. Fourth floor was the bathroom, but no one lurked in the shower tonight. Floor 5 was the living room, cluttered, but hardly suggesting a break-in. 6 was Mr. Langley's office, and the holograms of his latest architectural projects glowed untouched. 7 was Logan's bedroom, which he skipped for now. 8 was a rec room that no one ever used. It had been Logan's room up until 5 years ago. Right there was where his bed used to be. But he'd moved down a floor when his sister passed away, because she had lived on the 9th, and because every night while she was alive, she'd tap a rhythm for Logan to hear through the floorboards. Shave and a haircut, it went, and Logan would throw both shoes up at the ceiling. Tap, tap. They went. 2 bits. And that's how they always said goodnight. When Lily died, it didn't take more than one tapless night for Logan to know that he couldn't live under that ceiling anymore. Lily's room, 9, was a floor frozen in time like a museum of her last days. Like one big held breath. It was Logan's least favorite to visit. A chill ran through him each time he did, and his eyes watered and made it hard for him to see. But still, he never skipped it. 9 was the perfect place for an intruder to hide. Tonight, though, like each night, there was no one there, or at least no one Logan could find, and he wasted no time stepping back into the elevator, knocking a soft tap-tap against the wall as he did. 10 was his parents' master bedroom, which Logan didn't need to check, so he moved straight to Mrs. Langley's study on 11. Filled to the brim with screens and meteorology tablets and satellite dishes, though no spies or burglars or murderers. It was beginning to look as though Logan would wake to see another day. On the roof was the Logan's yard. It was too small to play football up there, but it had a nice view. The grass shook gently in the evening wind, and having now checked each floor, Logan relaxed and allowed himself the drowsiness leading so pleasantly to sleep. He took the elevator down to his room on 7 and crawled back under the covers, relieved to have made it through another night. Except, there, on his desk, the picture he kept. Had it moved? In its frame was the last snapshot taken of Logan and his sister on the eve of her death, smiling over presents with the blur of family celebration behind them. Logan always kept this picture positioned so he could see it from his bed. Now it rested ever so slightly pointed away, his view of it not quite straight on. The desk space in front of it just slightly wet with water that should have been in the glass beside it. Who had been there? Who had snuck in through the window? Who had tipped the glass and knocked the picture askew? No one. No one, Logan told himself. You're being insane, right? And Logan's heart snapped in his chest, so hard that it hurt. When across the room, the door to the outside stairway clicked quietly shut. Chapter.
All right, I'm trying to exit it before we. Okay, so that's pretty. They went fast. I feel like when you're into it, they go fast. So I jotted down a few notes while I was listening with you guys. So we found out that, in fact, the woman that passed away was his sister. We even got a name. Her name is Lily. It's Logan's sister. Something when I was listening to, obviously they live in a really big house. They have an elevator, and every floor is a different room. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. The roof, the yard is on the roof. That's different. And then I heard something else that kind of made me think that this is set in the future. It's kind of futuristic. And I already know that because I read the summary that they gave for us. But the one thing was he went into his dad's office, and it seems like he's some kind of an architect. He has hologram plans in the middle of the room. So that's probably something that you would see in the future. I'm pretty sure most architects now still use paper schematics and computers. So making their plans into 3D replica holograms sounds like something that comes from the future. So does the house, now that I think about it. His mom's study had tablets and satellites and meteorology equipment everywhere. So maybe she could do something with the weather or maybe space. The 7th floor was Logan's room. Let's see what else I put. Okay, so the big question at the end that he's kind of working through the whole time we're listening is he being paranoid? Does he really think that there's somebody trying to follow him or come into the house? He thinks that he might be in danger because something that happened to his sister. So is he being paranoid, or is there really somebody watching him and coming into their house? So when he gets back to his room after checking the rest of the house, he notices that the picture that he always looks at of him and his sister is moved. And then he notices that there's water that was spilled onto the table. And the last thing that the author exits with is Logan hearing a door close, the one that goes out to the stairwell. So right there, he kind of gets a little bit of affirmation, but he even keeps trying to talk himself down. Am I getting crazy? Am I insane? Or is there really something going on? So we're probably going to hear about that in chapter 2, part 1, that we will listen to next week. So swiped. Tune in next week. See you later. I hope you have a great day.